This story was sent to me by Alana Trotman, and any story that I get that deals with the topic of rape is not an easy one to talk about, but this one right here will definitely, probably, I will understand if you can't make it through the video. And I can only imagine what the person in question had to go through and endure with something like this. Psychologically damaging for sure. But on the left is a picture of a young lady by the name of Shannon Clifton. She's 19. And on the right is a picture of her dad with her at a younger age. His name is Shane Ray Clifton, and he is 36. Her dad raped his daughter up to 4 times a day. Let me say that again. He raped his daughter 4 times a day for 8 years. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, this man would rape his daughter unprotectedly. And what ended up happening is he got her pregnant at the age of 13. And then she had no other choice but to give the child up for adoption. So her dad raped her 4 times a day for 8 years. And when she turned 13, she gave birth to the child that was basically planted in her by her own dad. Incest, basically. Not by choice, but by force. And had to give the child up for adoption. They said he was sentenced to jail for 15 years, but his sentence was reduced to 10 years. And it says now Shannon wants to leave the town that she's from because she's afraid that he's going to come after her when he gets out. I haven't even begun to read the article yet. That's just the subheadings. Because, on Daily Mail, they give you all those subheadings. That's crazy when you think about it. I mean, the psychological trauma and damage one has to go through at the hands of their own parent. It says a teenager who was repeatedly raped by her Benman father and even gave birth to his child is to flee her home after his prison sentence was reduced. Shannon Clifton, age 19, is trying to piece her life back together after suffering horrific treatment at the hands of her father, Shane Ray Clifton, until the age of 14. The student was raped up to 4 times a day and at the age of 13 gave birth to her father's child, who was later adopted. The horrific abuse eventually came to an end when Clifton, age 36, was jailed for 15 years. But Shannon later found out that his sentence was reduced to 10 years and now says she wants to flee Derby before the monster is released from jail. Shannon, who grew up in Chattinson, a suburb of Derby, says she went to live with her father at age 5 when her parents split up. She said it was nice at first, but he started getting abusive. I would come home from school and he started to hit me. I just got used to it in the end. The first time it happened was when we moved into a flat near Elveston Castle. It started to become sexual. There was one time in the front door of the room, up on the floor, I tried to block it out so I don't remember it all. Shannon was a pupil at Brett's Hilltop School, Derby at the time. I think this sounds like overseas. She said she used to go to school with bruises all over, but was instructed to tell teachers she had been play fighting with her cousins. After a period of time, Shannon and her father moved back to Chattiston. Shannon said that's when everything started getting worse. It was becoming more regular. When I was younger, it was just once or twice here and there, but then it started becoming every day, then a few times a day. Shannon said that she was often raped before and after school and sometimes in the middle of the night. She said, I only understood what sex was when I was about 9 and we were learning about it at school. I remember the first time we were taught sex education, my teacher told us nobody should touch you in these places. I was shocked because I thought that's what my dad does to me. Shannon said her father treated her as his wife. He regularly asked her to clean the house and make his dinner from the age of 9. When Shannon was 11, she noticed that her body started to change, and that's when she realized she was pregnant. She said, for a while I didn't tell him, but when I did finally tell him, he beat me up. It was all really confusing. I was a child carrying a child. She worked out that she was around 28 weeks pregnant when she lost the baby. In December 2012, Shannon became pregnant again. She said she wasn't surprised she lost the baby because of the things I was going through. Shannon said she was 12. She told the teacher and a social worker that her father had broken her nose. She said, they took me away for one night, and then the next day I went straight back to him. They didn't do anything about it, so I thought there's no point in telling people anything. I put myself in more danger by telling them I was too scared. Shannon said summer was the worst time because her father would rape her outside the house. She said he used to take me out and do it in the fields and the woods. At night, if he had been drinking at a family thing on the way home, he would do it in an alleyway. I tried to fight back, but I used to get hurt more. It was easier not to do anything. I thought it was going to last forever. Shannon desperately pleaded with her father for the abuse to end. She said he used to say, I'm not going to do it again, I promise. I'm really sorry. I will get better. Then give it an hour and he would do it again. In 2013, Shannon was pregnant again with her third baby. She was at a Kingsmead school, and her father used to stand outside the school grounds and watch all the time. She said things came to a head at the end of her pregnancy, at which point she was a pupil at West Park Academy. Shannon said he had just raped me upstairs and I was screaming and crying. I ran downstairs and got a big knife and thought if I stab myself straight in the heart, the baby won't die and I don't have to put up with this anymore. But I needed to be there for my child. If it was a girl, he could have ran off with her too. She said he still abused her throughout the pregnancy, but would not let her go to the hospital. But teachers noticed a week before she gave birth, and social care workers at the police turned up at her school. But Clifton was not arrested and went off on the run with Shannon for a week. Her father told her when the baby was born, he would kill him. At the end of the week, they went to DW Fitness Pride Park to change clothes when a member of the public spotted Shannon and called the police. Shannon said it was hard because that was the last time I ever saw my father, and I think I knew that. Even though he did everything that he did, he was the only person I grew up with. He was all I had. But he took my childhood away from me. When she got into the hospital the day before giving birth, nurses told Shannon she was over 39 weeks pregnant. Shannon kept her child for a year but gave him up for adoption at the age of 1 because he needed a better life. But she hopes to have a relationship with him when he grows up. In April 2015, Shane Ray Clifton was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He later had his sentence reduced to 10 years, meaning he'll be potentially to be allowed out on parole in 4.5 years. Shannon bravely stood up in court in front of her father and told the jury what she had been through, but now the teenager is terrified of him finding her when he's released. She says, I'm scared what's going to stop him from hurting me again. Shannon now hopes to move abroad to start a new life. She said living in Derby brings back too much. When she first waived her being anonymous as a victim of a sex crime, Shannon said she received floods of messages from strangers who said she inspired them. She said times are still tough and admitted she had tried to commit suicide before. But Shannon is now studying forensic psychology with the Open University and planning to release her book, The Monster I Loved, before the end of the year. She's also doing a course in motivational speaking. She said, I want people to see there is a way out. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. Most people look at me and wouldn't know that I've been through that. But you won't get over it, but you can't move on from it. I know I'm worth more than that. Sometimes you have to make positives out of a bad situation. She hopes to have a relationship with her child in the future and wants to inspire others through her new book. Wow. That has to be one of the craziest rape stories I have ever read on my channel. And I've come across many of them. I think the really messed up part about it is that even when she tried to reach out for help, they kept literally tossing her back to the wolves, with him being that wolf. I mean, could you imagine having to go through that for years on end from a child? And she got pregnant 3 times. 3 times. And that was a true miscarriage of justice. They only gave this man 15 years. First off, 15 years was too low, but then they reduced his sentence down to 10, which means he could be out in 4.5, on parole. Her fleeing from wherever she is or wherever she was probably the smartest thing she could ever do. Like I said, that this has to be psychologically damaging on anybody who had to go through something like that. Now, if Me Too had their act together, this could be one major story that they could rally behind. But this would miss their mark because it doesn't fit their narrative, even though this would be a perfect candidate for it. I don't care if it is abroad. Like I said, this was a very hard story for me to read. Like, you would think that I think the main shocking thing is the fact that she has not taken her life, because many people at that point would be ready to just end it all right there. You saw she had the suicidal thoughts, and to be honest, I don't even blame her for even having them. But the thing that stopped her was the child. I think that if she didn't get pregnant or have the child, she probably would have killed herself. Hear what she said? She said, I will stab myself in the heart. That way the child will still have a chance to live. But she said she was scared that if it was a girl, the guy, that her father would take the child and run off with the child and do to the child what he's been doing to her. So she really had to take that into consideration. But her father, well, I wouldn't even want to call this person a father. I can't even call them a man. This monster, I would say over here, he probably would get the death penalty. But the way that they treat palm-colored men with kid gloves when it comes to stuff like this, he probably would get the same type of sentence here as he did over there. He probably would get less. Excuse me. But this is a wild story right here. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.